Okay. Good evening, everybody. Could you please take a seat? Can you please take a seat, please? We're going to start. Hi, Karen. Thank you for coming for the small crowd that we have here. My name is Cliff Weiner. I'm president of the POA. First on our agenda is we're going to stand for the pledge to the flag and then a moment of silence for our first responders and military personnel that protect us every day of our lives. Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. First on our agenda is the reading of our minutes from our September 25th meeting at Laurel Manor by our Secretary, Rev. Benson.
Thanks, Cliff. All right. Good evening, everybody. So normally with the minutes, we just sort of do a quick highlight of some of the things that happened in the last meeting and whatnot. And normally we run through some routine kinds of things associated with the treasury report and whatnot, so I won't cover from last month since you get a treasury report here. Then we go through some announcements, and some of them are somewhat the standard announcements. You know, I had to come up here after Cliff, so I guess I need to put it up a little higher here.
We need to make it louder.
So anyhow, a couple of announcements here. Cliff highlighted the fact that there were 4 out of 5 incorrect statements by a reporter on their article in the September 26th Daily Sun, and how the Daily Sun reporters were continuing to be relentless attacks against the 3 new Sumter County commissioners. Cliff stated the reporters need to present information accurately versus the biased opinion and true lack of accountability we have seen lately. There was a question then asked, does the Daily Sun publish letters to the editor? The answer is yes, but the best way to keep publishing is to keep publishing the POA monthly bulletins that state the facts and bring to light inaccurate statements or issues of interest to village residents. The POA bulletin is received by over 65,000 homes, way more than the Daily Sun. So they said that's a better way to ensure we get the right word out there and the accurate word, and then that's where you obviously see what are the issues of interest to the villagers that might not be showing up in the Daily Sun. It'll be in the bulletin. Then we had our speaker for the month. It was Ann Bossler, who talked about Caring Neighbors program. Started the program in the village of Hadley a few years ago. It has grown to where the village of Hadley now has 30 volunteers, and 5 more villages have started this program. The goal is for every village in the villages to have a program. The program operates and receives funding under the United Way of Lake and Sumter County, and all volunteers are background checked. It is designed to provide non-medical services that do not require long-term continuous support. Some of the support areas include transportation, respite care, i.e. give a caregiver a break, meals, walking dogs and running errands, getting food, mail, prescriptions, and whatnot. The program fills about 95% of the requests that they receive. The assigned process includes a neighbor has a need, assessment is scheduled of that person, service is then requested by email to all the volunteers in that village, so it's village by village. The volunteers reply by stating they can fill the request, and then that person calls the neighbor, and then the service is provided. Ms. Bossler ended by encouraging all to form a group in their village. Only need 6 volunteers to start a Caring Neighbors program in your particular village. There was a question asked on if the program is in Marion County, since obviously we spread across 3 counties with the villages. The answer was must go through the Marion County United Way, which operates a little differently than Lake Sumter County United Way. And she was going to look into it a little bit more too. And do you have to be a Lake or Sumter County resident to volunteer? Answer, she said you'd have to look into that. Each group only serves the residents in that village, and so she's not sure how that works there. But anyhow, she again encouraged all villages to start this program. And that was about at the end of it there, and then we concluded the meeting. So, Cliff?
Thank you, Rev. Can I get a motion to approve the minutes from somebody? Thank you. Second? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, next is a reading of our treasurer's report from our treasurer, Donna Kempa.
Hello, everybody. Okay, for the month of September, we had expenses of $8,926.65. I'm sorry, revenues. I said that wrong. Revenues of $89,2665, and expenses were $18,240.51. Yeah, I was better off the other way. So we did have an operating loss last month of $93,1386. We do have $122,800 in our operating funds account. Just ad revenues will start to come in. We typically renew October through March for ads, so the revenues will start increasing a little bit. So for everybody who's here, I just want to tell you, feel free to take some extra donuts because there's plenty back there before you leave, okay? Thank you.
Thanks, Donna. At the back, we have our friends from Hospital Auxiliary, Realty Execs, and Shine. Not even all those tables are full. Well, that's a first. I started something last month, and I'll continue to do it. I don't see any Sumter County Commissioners here tonight, so I don't need them to stand. But would all the supervisors of a district please stand? Gary? Jerry? Andrew? Okay. Gary Kadow, Andrew Bilodaro, who's in District 12. Gary's in District 5. Jerry's in District 5. Sal's in District 8. And I'm in District 4. And Donna, our treasurer, who is just there, is on the AAC. So we have a lot of our people in the POA that are involved in more than just the POA. Just so you know, it's important to get involved to try to make things better. For those of you, the few of you who are here, and those that are watching, because we now live stream our meetings, and it's worked really well. In August, we had 1,500 hits on our live stream and 500 on our website, where we post it 2 days after the meeting. And last month, even though our meeting was the following week because it fell on the same day as the Sumter County Commission meeting, and I moved it, and it was on a Wednesday instead of a Tuesday, we still had 226 hits on our live stream. So it's working. Not a lot of people sitting here, but hopefully there's a lot of people watching it. That's what's important. We will be having our annual shredding event on April 9th, 2022 at the Wildwood Community Center. There'll be more information coming out in the December bulletin. And at that point in time, you'll be able to apply for tickets. It's for members only. It's our way to let our members get rid of all their important papers. We've done this now for 4 years, Sal?
Yes.
For 4 years, and we've done about 40,000 pounds of paper every time we do it. So it worked out really well. The Wildwood Community Center happens to be a great place to do it because we have no traffic on the street, which was really, really important. So last year's was the best. Follow it in the bulletin. There'll be lots more information. You'll be able to send in and get a ticket. You will need a ticket. And then we're going to do something different, which I'll announce next month. POA as speakers, Sal and I. For your club or any of your groups, we can do one of two things. We can talk about the POA and some of the issues in the villages, or we can do a presentation which will help you get an AED program started, the neighbor-to-neighbor program in the villages. We've gotten, I don't know, 30 or 35 of them started so far. It's been kind of slow lately because of COVID, but as groups start meeting again, hopefully it'll pick up. As I said before, we are live streaming. If you don't get e-notification, you can go on the District Gov website and sign up for e-notification. Pick and choose what you would like to be notified of. It's a great tool, believe me when I tell you, especially when there's a storm coming, because you will find out all the things you want to know about it. And I'm going to say a little something about the Special Fire District, which I'm sure you're all aware of. Sumter County Commissioners have agreed to sort of go along with the program. So the district is moving forward with it. Hopefully, in the next 3 or 4 months, we'll get some information as to how they plan to go about it and sort of what the cost might be. It's got to go through the House and the Senate, and then it's got to be put on a ballot. It's a referendum, which would, if and when it comes out of the House, it'll be on the ballot in November of next year. Everybody that lives in the villages and lives in Sumter County will be able to vote on it, and hopefully it'll pass. As we proceed, we will be sure to give you all the information you need. But I think that it's moving along. Thank you to all the residents that showed up at all the Sumter County meetings, because in numbers, they changed their mind, or they did some things that I didn't know that they were going to do. But it all worked out really well. So hopefully, in a year or two, we will have our fire department doing our transporting. Actually, they should be doing it as of October 1st of next year, because AMR's contract is up on September 30th. So plans are in the works. I've talked to Chief Kane a couple times. They're moving forward, anticipating that they are going to start transporting sometime next September, October. Just for your information, there was a snafu. We're supposed to meet here not November, but in December. Somehow there was a mix-up and this room is not available, so our December meeting will be at Laurel Manor on the 3rd Tuesday. So our next 2 meetings, November and December, are at Laurel Manor, 3rd Tuesday of the month. It'll be on the front page of the bulletin that gets delivered week after next. Now's the time for the open forum, so if anybody's got something they want to say or ask a question, we'll do our best to answer it. If we can't answer it, we'll get you an answer. And we do have a distinguished guest here, because Bruce Brown from District Property Management's here, so if we have a really tough question, he can help.
Thank you. I would like to thank whoever started it or came up with the idea, whether it's you, the president of the organization, or the board, as far as videotaping and live streaming these meetings. I was involved in the community where I came from as chairman of a committee that put it into our entire city. And it empowered the residents of our city to become more involved. It creates a transparent form of government. And that's what's needed, especially after the 25% tax increase, as well as the EMS unit. While I worked on the EMS issue throughout the county here, I came to realize one thing. There's 3 groups of residents within our community. There's the one that's a permanent resident that lives here around the year, never really leaves, maybe a week or so. There's another group that's a Florida resident, but at the same time, they may take off for the summer to visit relatives from other areas where they came from or travel. And then you have what you would call your typical snowbirds that are not residents here, but they are property owners. They're not voting. And these people are thirsty for information. And the only way you can get them information when they're not present in the villages is through electronic media. And it is so important that we reach out to these people and tell them the facts. They all have a vested interest in the villages, and they have a right to know. And that's why this is so important. So I take my hats off to you folks in doing it. with all of the members of the POA that are board supervisors and involved in other parts of the village's government, I would ask you to push to have all villages meetings that have anything to do with decision-making and monetary issues to get those videotaped and on a website. The people deserve the right to know. And I can't thank you enough for that. And I have a couple other things. When you mentioned the fire district, I'm all in support of the fire district, but I am concerned that it's not used as a revenue stream for the developer to push more costs onto us through the fire district on their expansion in the rest of the villages. So as this is pushed forward, I think the idea is good, but it needs to be controlled. And that is one of my concerns, and we should receive a property tax rollback for the money that goes directly to the fire district that is not going to be used in the general fund. Another item that I have is, I believe it was the last meeting I did not attend, or the meeting before. I did view it on the website. There was a mention, I believe, of a newspaper, Orlando possibly, that was doing some reporting about the villages. If that's the case, then I believe it would benefit the POA and the residents of this community to get behind it and sell subscriptions so that we have an unbiased newspaper that will report the issues for both the pros and the cons of a particular issue, because we know we're not getting it from the news media here in the villages. So I think that's an important thing. And lastly, I've sent a couple emails to the POA website. I never got any type of response back. Don't know if you received them or not or anything. So I don't know what the procedure is on that. But I'd like to know that my emails are reaching if I do send you one.
Okay, thank you. First of all, I didn't get your emails. I will check and find out why not, okay? That's number one. Number two, as far as the developer having any part of the special fire district, I have been assured by many people that that will not happen. It will be an independent board of 5 people that will be elected by all the residents that live within the boundaries of the villages as to who serves on that board and makes the rules and policy. The developer and the SLCDD and the VCCDD will not be involved. I've been told that 10 times, and as long as that's the case, I'm all for it. I'm not for letting the developer make more money over or have more control over another board. I serve on a board. He's got control of far too many boards as far as I'm concerned. So this is going to be the first board, hopefully, that is going to be controlled by residents, and we're going to do everything we can to see that's going to happen. Sally's got another question.
Well, in reading the presentation by that firm that the fire department used to make the study,
J. Engel?
right, there's a provision in there, provided that it stays, that that board can create impact fees. Okay, fire impact fees. And if that's the case, when there's development going farther south, there needs to be a provision that the people that have already paid for fire equipment, fire stations, and everything else should not have to continue paying for the continued growth. That's one of the main issues. I mean, the developer may not have full control of the board, but he can still have a strong influence.
Without a doubt. And we're going to do everything we can to see that that doesn't happen. That's all I can do. And we have to play it by ear and see as things progress and we get more information. So far, district and the fire department has been very upfront, keeping me informed of stuff, and we try to put it out so you guys know it as soon as we get it.
The problem with an Addis Villages newspaper, the Orlando Sentinel, when I lived in Claremont, had a reporter who always reported on the villages. in a very negative overall light. There was a certain jealousy of the villages. So that's not necessarily a good thing to have a, I know what the sun is, but that's not necessarily a good thing to have an out of the area paper reporting on us.
I think we hope they'd be independent.
Yeah, well, the Daily Sun and I don't agree on a whole lot of things because, I'll say this again, no matter what they put in the paper about an article and it involves Sumter County, the 3 gentlemen that got elected last year come up somehow, even if they're not any part of the article. So I'm not opposed to them printing truthful information, but it's got to be it's got to be truthful. When they start putting stuff that's not true, it just gives people a false sense of security. It gives people the wrong impression. And after you know, it's like anything else. You say something enough times, people start to believe it. And it's not true. I know it's not true. So that's one of my big issues, and we're working on it. Anybody else got a question? Gary, you better come down here, hon. Buddy, you're up. Before we do that, you take your time, Gary. I got something else. File of life, guys. I say this every month at every meeting and at every presentation I do. We partner with Sumter County Sheriff's Department on the Vial of Life. This is the Vial of Life. This is the form that goes with it. It's got 2 stickers on it. The second page, you write all your medical information, your doctors. You put it inside this tube. You put this tube on the top shelf of your refrigerator. You put one of these stickers on your front door and one on the refrigerator. In case of an emergency, you're not going to have to say anything because they're going to go right to the refrigerator and they're going to take it. I know this from personal experience because my wife had a medical emergency and we have one of these. It made my life a lot easier because I was kind of flustered because when your loved one's in distress, it's not a very good subject and you sort of forget. And I'm a certified AED CPR instructor and I fell to pieces, to tell you the truth, and I would have done it if it had been my wife or one of my kids or one of my grandkids. So this is really, really important. We've probably helped them get 1,000 of these out, but we're going to continue to do this until everybody that lives in the villages has one in their refrigerator. And as long as the Sumter County Sheriff's Department has them, I'm going to continue to talk about it. So if you don't have one, we have them back on the table. Take 1, take 2. Take 2 for your neighbors. Let's get them in everybody's refrigerator. Thank you. Tonight's, yes, Andrew. Yeah, you want to give him a mic?
Thank you. Regarding the Vial of Life, I'm Andy Billardello, and I've been speaking at the county commission meetings regarding shelter reform, the animal shelter. And one of the things that I discussed with some other people involved with the Vial of Life, which you may want to consider, is if you have a dog or a cat or some pet or whatever, put information in there as well on who you want to care for your animal if you do have to go to the hospital. Maybe it's a neighbor, maybe it's a friend around the corner. Just put on there so the paramedics or the sheriff's deputies or Wildwood Police will know to whom to take your dog. Otherwise, your pet's going to the shelter. And 3 to 5 days they're holding it, and if you're in the hospital for 2 weeks, your pet could be adopted out to somebody else. So you put some information in there on animal care. So it's in there with your own medical history. So just a food for thought. Just think about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew. It's a great suggestion. Sal wants to say
Yeah.
something.
This is to elaborate on what Cliff said about the AED program. It's world-class here in the villages. There is no other program that will touch this in terms of survival rate for cardiac arrest. Now, people moving into the villages now because the snowbirds are coming back. Now, there are 247 neighborhood programs with AED. That represents about 15,000 houses. So we have about 60,000, 70,000 homes in the villages, so there's a lot of room to grow here with this program. But as I said before, see me after the meeting. Cliff and I will come to give you a presentation, okay? we can explain how the AED works, what you need to organize in your neighborhood, okay, what's involved with the equipment, how much the equipment costs, and how to train responders and so forth. So if you are interested, or you know someone in your subdivision is interested in this, please see me after the meeting. Thank you.
Thanks, Sal. Okay, tonight's speaker is a friend, and lots of people say someone's a friend, but Gary truly is a friend of mine. I've known him for a long time. He happens to be a District 5 supervisor for about 12 years. He's actually the chairman of District 5 Board of Supervisors. He's on the Auxiliary Foundation Board. He's a, I put the paper down. He's a ordained priest, and more importantly, he founded an organization in 2009 that's trying to help our men and women that served in the armed forces to get out of the Ocala National Forest, which I don't think anybody should be living there, especially people that defended this country. So I think this is really important. I want Gary to talk, and I'm going to say it now just because I said I'd say it next month, but I can't keep secrets. Part of my shredding event that we've done this year, we're going to do it a little different. It's free to our members, but I'm going to ask everybody that comes to bring a donation, and it's going to SOS, so Gary can help these guys get out of the forest and do the good work that he does. And I'm really going to be pushing this for the next 5 or 6 months. So I hope we all help Gary. If we have the 1,000 or 1,200 cars come through that we usually get, hopefully it'll make a big dent in his program. So Gary, you're up.
Thank you, Cliff. Can you hear me okay? I got a loud voice, so I don't think you'll have any trouble. I always begin every presentation by asking a very simple question. Anyone who is a veteran who has served honorably in the United States military, could you just raise your hand, let me know? Wow, look at that, see? Always. This is the most patriotic community I have ever seen in my life, and I've been places all over the United States and the world. One of the things that most people don't realize, when our veterans come home again from war, from battle, whether it's Afghanistan, Iraq, Desert Storm, Desert Shield, there's just been so many. We wave flags. We have parades. We welcome them home. We hold up signs. I mean, it's absolutely beautiful. And we like to believe they're going home to their families, they're going home to their jobs, they're going home to their loved ones, everything they had before they left, but that's not always the case. Now, it is true about 95% of our veterans returning do exactly that, and their lives are restored and they continue on. But then there's about that 5%, 4.5%, and what happens to them? Well, very often they get back, and their families, while they've been gone, particularly if they've served 3 or 4 tours, which many of them have, my son's one of them, they would come home and they would find their families are no longer together. Things have changed. The factory they worked in, the job they had, it's not there anymore. The home they lived in may not be there anymore. And in many cases, they are so distraught and they are so damaged. And people don't realize when you're in combat, and I'm a combat veteran for Vietnam, you can get wounded in many ways, but psychologically wounded is something we don't see on the surface. And so many of these veterans suffer from PTSD. They still have the nightmares. They still have the flashbacks. I was at a Vietnam veterans meeting one night, and I asked everybody in the audience, I'm a chaplain for them also, I said, how many of you still have the nightmares? How many wake up in the middle of the night in the sweats or wake up crying or screaming? Be honest. 86% raise their hands. 86%. This was an audience of about 280. So it's still out there. In severe cases, and I know I saw it in Vietnam when we came back, no secret, I'm not going to dwell on it, we didn't get the greeting most got. And for a lot of our people coming home, it was pretty damaging. I'm one of the lucky ones. I got through it. I had a strong family and good support. But a lot of them just retreated to the forest or they went somewhere else. Right now in the United States, there are 150,000 veteran families who are homeless. 150,000. That is shameful for a nation like this. 1/3 of them are in Florida because of our climate. They can survive here. Come January and February, there's an influx of homeless veterans come down here that just fill the center of the forest. When I began my program, I think I had well over 1,200 military families that we were caring for. Now, you can drive through the forest all day, and you're never going to see them for a lot of reasons. One, they don't want to be on display. It's not a zoo. They don't like it. They stay with their own. When they set up a camp, it even looks like a military camp. They set up an encirclement. And in the middle of that circle, they set up what's called kiddie camp. What kiddie camp is a playground for the little ones, for the kids, a place where they're safe. And they stand sentry around that whenever the kids are there. And you might say, well, gee, why? To protect them from the animals? Well, maybe. I've seen panther out there. I've seen bear. I've seen spiders the size of softballs. I even wound up, I had to kill it. I don't like killing animals, but I killed a 10-foot rattlesnake in the forest, and we found that snake in kiddie camp. So it can be a dangerous place, but the biggest danger is when someone comes in and steals a child. And that does happen. They will kidnap children because they're in the middle of nowhere, and who are they going to complain to? They can go to the authorities. They're homeless, they're unshaven, they're dirty. They look at them like they're worthless. And they'll say, yeah, well, we'll take a report, you know, we'll get back to you if anything happens. 9 out of 10 times, nothing ever happens. So I saw these things happening because of a friend of mine who took me out there. And then all of a sudden, I get a phone call about 3:15 in the morning, and it was my son, Ronnie. He was a first sergeant with the United States Army Rangers. And at that time, he was fighting in Iraq. He was about maybe 12, 15 clicks north of Baghdad. He had been in a horrible firefight. And he called, and the phone rang, and like any father, when you have somebody who was overseas and fighting, your heart stops. And I answered the phone, and it was him, and he says, Dad, you got to help me, which panicked me right away. And I said, Ronnie, what's wrong? What happened? You okay? You been injured? He says, no, not that, Dad. He said, we had a horrible firefight. He said, we lost 3 of our people, mainly because we didn't have triage. We didn't have any place to treat them before they could get medevaced out, and we lost them. But he said, the worst thing I've seen are the children. They're getting cut to shreds. They're losing arms. They're losing legs. They're being killed. And he said, we don't have anything for pediatrics here to try and help them and save their lives. And he says, you got to do something. And I thought, what am I going to do? I'm standing there in my pajamas at 3:15 in the morning. But I went to the computer and I sat down, and I couldn't tell you what I was thinking at the time, but I just kept typing and typing and typing. And when I was all done, I went back, got a little bit of sleep, and I read it in the morning. And when I looked at it, I said, you know, this might work. And basically what I wrote is talk to the hospitals, talk to the medical providers, find out if they have any surplus equipment, whether it's surgical equipment, treatment equipment, triage equipment, whatever it may be, bandages, and see if they'll donate it. So that morning, I went over to the Villages Hospital. And this is quite a while ago. This was back in 2010. We weren't that big then. And I met with the president, who I knew at the time, and I said, look, I need medical supplies. I want to send them overseas to our troops, to the medical battalions. Do you ever get excess supplies? He laughed at me. He said, excess supplies? He said, we probably throw out 15 million pounds of brand new medical supplies every single year. They end up in a landfill. I'm sorry. And I said, are you crazy? Why? He goes, it's the law. Federal government, state government says if they're in a room with a patient, even if they haven't been touched, you got to dispose of them. If they're in an operating room, an ER, anywhere in the hospital, you have to dispose of them. And we have no choice. And I said, can you give them to me? Can I have them? And he goes, well, what you'd have to do, he said, you got to sanitize them, you have to disinfect them, you have to repackage them, you have to have people to do that. It has to be done in a clean room. And he rattled off all these things. And of course, you have to follow hospital protocol. I have no idea what the heck that was. And I said, but you'd allow me to do it, right? And he said, I'll even give you the clean room. And I said, okay. He said, I'll get the supplies, we'll have them there, but you got to supply the people. So that morning, I had a Rotary meeting. I went back to my Rotary Club, about 128 in total. And I told them what I had just done. And I thought they'd say, oh, you're crazy. You're out of your mind doing that. It's never going to happen. And I said, I need people to do it. Every single person in that room raised their hand. And that was the beginning of Project SOS Support Our Soldiers. Every Tuesday and Thursday, we met at the hospital. We were in a clean room. We wore gowns. We wore masks. We wore gloves. We did the whole hospital protocol. And the very first shipment from Project SOS to our troops, it was the 528th Medical Battalion, just outside of Baghdad, was 5 cartons. I took him to the Fruitland Park post office, and I set him on the counter, and the girl looked at him and said, well, these are going to Iraq. And I said, they are. They're going to a medical battalion to help treat our troops and kids that are getting wounded over there. And I said, what's it going to cost me? And I'm thinking, wow, get ready for the checkbook. And she came back, she said, it's not going to cost you anything. She said, I would be honored to pay for the postage to send that. And I thought, I think we got something going here. People like it. And it grew from there. When we were done, and I operated about 3 years overseas. We were in Iraq, and we were in Afghanistan also. When we finished, we had 23 forward operations-based trauma centers set up that could do minor surgery before the helicopters came to get them out. The 101st Airborne and the 3rd Air Cav took an old hospital that had been blown up in Jalalabad, Afghanistan. They rebuilt it. We supplied all the surgical stuff, the lamps, the tables, the everything that you needed in a hospital. We had it. We had warehouses full of it. We distributed over 450 wheelchairs, canes, walkers. They had, particularly in Afghanistan, what they call the crawling children in their language. But what it meant was their legs were blown away. And they were actually taking bicycle things and building a cart like you've seen. I don't want to do the analogy, but you've seen the dogs with the wheels on the back that don't have legs. This is how the children were. And they could push themselves along and propel. Well, we ended that with wheelchairs and power chairs and everything else that we could get. So within 3 years, we made a difference. We had an Air Force contract. Didn't cost anything to send it. I was told by the Air Force and also by the State Department, if I can get it to MacDill Air Force Base, they will take over. They'll fly it to Germany in a C-130 or Globemaster, whatever they have. They will then take it to either Afghanistan or Iraq. Well, we did that for 3 years. And we built a 10-bed children's hospital just for the kids over there. This was all done right out of the villages. You've probably never even heard of us. We don't advertise, we don't publicize, we don't get articles in the local paper for various reasons. But people hear word of mouth, like tonight, like I'm talking to you. All this took place. What it had evolved from there into is a local part of Project SOS. Eventually the Taliban, which made the Iraqi forces look like kids, did some god-awful things over there. Very often some of the villages would help our personnel over there, whatever branch it is, U.S. military, just give them water. That's all they had to do to get the ire of the Taliban after them. And when we left, they would come down and wreak havoc. In one area of 9 villages, which I got a phone call from the head of the whole medical thing that had both Iraq and Afghanistan. Colonel Steve called me. He says, Gary, I got a real crisis. And I said, what is it? What can I do? He said, Taliban came down to those 9 villages I was telling you about. He said, they burned all the crops. They killed all the livestock. They gathered up all the young women that had babies, and they mutilated them so they couldn't breastfeed their babies anymore. And I said, you got to be kidding me. He said, there is no limit to what they'll do. He said, we just found a child in the sewer that had been roasted over an open fire, a 1.5-year-old, charred over 85% of his body and still alive, and our troops saved that child's life. Another one had his face bashed in with the butts of rifles. They did this in front of parents because they couldn't hurt the parents. They've already been beaten up enough. So those are the kind of things that we began with, and then after 3 years, they identified who SOS was and what we were doing, and they targeted us. Troops were getting hurt, our troops, in delivering these things. They went on the backs of mules, they went in helicopters, they went in armored convoys, and I got a phone call from the Pentagon from a very high official who I love dearly, and we lost him very recently, very, very recently. And he said, Gary, can't do it anymore, bud. He said, they know who we are, they know who you guys are, and he said, I can't lose my troops taking this stuff out into the field. And I said, I understand. And it ended, and I was heartbroken. But then I thought, okay, they're over there now, but they're coming back slowly. What are they running into? And I took a look at it, and I found out they were running into exactly what I said. They came back, there were no jobs. Families were broken up. They'd been there too many tours. The wife couldn't take it anymore. The husband couldn't take it anymore. Many, many women veterans, people don't realize that. There are so many that were over there serving in vital roles. For every combat troop, there are 20 members behind supporting that person. People don't understand that sometimes. But I thought, I can help them here at home. And I started going out in the forest because I was told that's where they were starting to go. If they got in trouble, they band together. That's what we're trained to do. And I went out there with a gentleman named Chris Ward. He was a pastor at a small church in Leesburg. He did 2 tours in Vietnam. He was my hero, and he died several years ago on Christmas Eve. And he had 37 stents in his body. I didn't think the human body could hold that, but Agent Orange had literally done away with his arteries. They were no more. They were gone. They eroded. But he took me out and he trained me how to survive out there, what to do, because it is a dangerous place. Where we go, you've probably never been. Like I said, you'll never see it from the road. But there are meth labs in there. There were at least 16 of them that I knew. And the very first thing I did is I went where they were. And they saw me, and I had my collar on. And we cut a deal. I said, I will not say anything about you. I will not do anything. That's between you and law enforcement. I'm not here as a cop. But if you come near my veterans, if you sell your garbage to them, in different words, even though I'm a priest, I said, I will come after you with a vengeance the likes of you've never seen. And they respected that. They never did it. They left them alone. I left them alone. They left my folks alone. We had 1,200 families then. The very first thing we decided to do first was get them healthy. They were bathing in the lakes and the streams and all that, and they're filled with bacteria over there. You can't drink that water. You can't wash with that water. So the first thing we did, we got fresh water. We got in 12 water buffaloes and put them up. They hold about 1,000 gallons of fresh water. Local fire companies joined me, and they came in and filled them every single week. We got them vitamins. We got them things to make them healthier. We set up clinics. We had dental clinics. We had medical clinics out there in the forest in the middle of nowhere in tents. And we started to get them healthy again. Once they were healthy, then we found out that majority of them, the vast majority, were not getting their VA benefits at all. Nothing. And I said, you're a combat veteran. Why? He said, I don't know. I keep going. They keep telling me to go away. And I said, what do they ask you? They said, well, they asked for a DD-214, my discharge. And I said, do you have it? He says, Father, he said, I haven't had that in 40 years. He said, I'm a Vietnam vet. I don't know where the hell that is. And there's no electricity out there, so you can't get it on the computer. But he said, every time I go there, they say, you got to have a DD-214. When you get it, come back. Don't come back until you get it. And off they go, and they never come back again. Or if they do have it, they would walk in, and they'd say, I got my DD-214. And they go, great, what's your address? Well, Ocala National Forest. Not an address, it's a place. What's your address? What's your house number? What's your street number? They treated them like they were garbage. They looked at them. They judged them by their appearance. Again, they would send them away. So I heard enough of these stories that finally I kind of went back to my previous life. I was not always a priest. I didn't always do this. I came up, I was a banker for 20 years. Cliff didn't read it, and that's good. But I spent 20 years in a bank, and then we got bought out, and then I went to work for the federal government. And I ran New York State HUD. Eventually, I was asked to go to Washington, where I worked as Deputy Assistant Secretary. And then from there, I went to the White House as a Special Assistant and Advisor on Housing for 2 presidents, and 2 different political parties, by the way. So it was most interesting. It was a different atmosphere. So I learned a lot. I met a lot of people, some really powerful people, and I thought, you know what? They always look at you and say, hey, you ever need anything, give me a call. Well, I needed something. Our veterans were suffering, and nobody gave a damn. So I started calling some people I knew, some senators, some congressmen, some people at the Pentagon that I had worked with, and I told them what was going on, and one of them came back. He said, let me handle that. He said, I'll take care of that. I said, okay, and I get a phone call 2 days later, and it's the director of the new VA, which is over on Route 42 near you in the Villages, would like to meet with you. So I went over there, and I said, terrific, and I took a video with me, which I have here tonight. I took other paperwork that I had and so forth, affidavits from these veterans who had been turned away, and I ran the presentation for her, showing her how they were living in the forest. That's not one I'm running tonight. But she looked at that, and when it was all over, she was sitting there at this long table in a conference room crying her eyes out. She said, my God, are we doing that to them? And I said, not you personally, but yeah, it falls on you. You're in charge. She said, will you give me another 20 minutes? I said, I'll give you another 20 days if you want it. I just want this to end. Picked up the phone. She called every director in that building and said, be in the conference room. You got 5 minutes. Be down here. Everybody came in, stopped what they're doing. Now I've got a whole table, a little intimidating. She said, Mr. Kadow, would you please run that video again and explain what's going on out there with our veterans? And I did. Same reaction. Half of them were sitting there with tears rolling down their cheeks with Kleenex, and the rest were like stunned. And she stood up at that point and said, let me make something perfectly clear. From this day forward, any veteran walks in this building and wants to get their benefits and they don't have a DD-214, you get it for them. That's what we pay you for. Anyone that comes in has a DD-214, but they don't have an address, use mine. He said, I'm the head of the VA down here. I've got Georgia and I've got Florida. Use mine. Use Mr. Kadow's. Use a church. Use a social services agency. Use whatever you want, but you get them their benefits. They deserve that. Am I clear? And everybody just sat there and said, crystal clear. Off they went, and the world changed. Within 1 month, 680 veterans living in the forest started getting their benefits. They got registered, they got their benefits. One Vietnam vet who served many tours over there and gave his life for it, got $144,000. His family was living on nothing. No food to eat, substandard housing, and all of a sudden, they could live again. And that kept repeating itself again and again and again. So now we've got him healthy, we've got him getting benefits. The next step was, you have to have a job somewhere. So I started asking around, and I've met a lot of people. I've been here 17 years. One of them, you've probably heard of. You've seen T&D Enterprises, T&D Construction, Patio, T&D this, T&D that. That's run by a gentleman named Terry Yoder and his wife, Glendora. He has a heart as big as all outdoors, and he loves our veterans. He's very patriotic. I called him, and I said, Terry, I said, I got a lot of veterans that need work. It'll restore their pride. It'll make them, feel like they're human beings again. Can you help me? He goes, yeah. He said, you call me, and if you vouch for them, and you know they're good, and they've gotten counseling, they're good to go, you have them call me. He said, we'll bring them in. I'll start them at $13 an hour, and 6 months later, they'll go to 15. He said, they'll have a good leaving, and they'll have every opportunity to move up into management if they choose to do so and do their job. And I did. And then I got other people down here to do the same thing. So now we're getting them into employment again, which is really terrific. Once that's done, then I put on my HUD hat again. And I started calling people at HUD and saying, okay, what programs do you have out there that nobody is utilizing? And there are many. Many of them can be used by our veterans or by the homeless. But when you're homeless, you don't know about these things. Therefore, you don't use them. And all that money just sits there. And that was the case at that time. I'm not sure it's that way now, but it was then. And they opened up all these programs. We were able to get them into affordable housing again. So they're healthy, they're working, they're in housing. The next step, excuse me, my nose is running, for the children. It's not just veterans and their families out there. They have children out there. Some had 3 and 4 children. And they're living in broken down vehicles in the middle of the forest. They're sleeping in old lean-tos. They take a blue tarp like we throw on the roof and run a rope between trees, put plastic on the ground, and that's their home. That's where they live. Some of the kids, I used to see them all the time, and they thought they were having mud ball fights. They had little black dots all over them when they came in. And what it was drawing salve, because when they lay on the ground at night, the body, the heat from your body draws the bugs up out of the ground, and they would get eaten alive. It bites all over them. It was just a horrible, horrible condition. But we were able to change that. I started taking books out to the kids. All kinds of books. You name it, it was there. It could be chemistry, could be history, could be comic books, whatever. But good books, good textbooks. And I take 40 books within a week. They'd be coming to me and they go, hey, Papa G, which was my nickname out there. Instead of Father Gary, it was Papa G. And they said, you got any more books? Can we get more books? And I said, yeah, sure, I can get them. So I kept taking them out and they kept reading them. And I started to realize in talking to them how smart these kids really are. See, they got something that our grandkids have that kind of holds it back a little. They didn't have Game Boys. They didn't have Xboxes. Heck, they didn't have electricity. They sat at night and they read by a campfire or by a lantern. They were insatiable readers. They loved to read, and they learned. And I thought, there's a lot of potential here. That can change lives too. Educate the children. They can help the parents and the siblings. So we started a scholarship program. That's kind of what I want to talk about a little bit tonight in a little more detail. The scholarship program for our military kids, and it's called Project SOS Military Children's Scholarship Fund. Very original, I know. That's been in effect now for 6 years. We now have 81 military children who are living in poverty, and I mean real poverty, now going to college. The way it was set up, and I went through an organization, some of you may have heard about it. If you did, let me know. It's called Take Stock in Children. Marlene O'Toole, who was our representative at one time, started this in Florida. It is an amazing organization. It's in Sumter County, it's in Lake County, it's in Marion County, and what they do is they give children a scholarship for 2 years of college. They identify them coming out of the 8th grade, so they're pretty young, and then they have to sign a contract in order to get the scholarship. They have to write a 500-word essay, why they deserve it. The parents have to write an essay, why they think their child deserves it. Then they have to submit a 16-page application and fill it out. There's tax forms. DD 214. They have to be a military child for me to sponsor it for SOS, because that's our mission. And they go through this whole thing, and at the very end, there's a contract signing. Now, these are 14-year-old kids. They come in and they sign a contract that says, in return for giving me 2 years of college for free to any state university or college in Florida, I will, for 4 years of high school, not use drugs, not use alcohol, study 2 hours every single day without exception, and I will not break the law in any way, shape, or form. That's what they sign. And then the parents sign under it that they will help the child to achieve this. Not enforce it. We're not asking to be police officers, but be parents, be responsible. Once that's done, they're then assigned a mentor, which is a separate program. That mentor meets with them, if not every week, every other week, and they spend time in school supervised, not to help them with classes or education, but to build their self-esteem again, to get them feeling proud of themselves, what they're doing, and to want to accomplish, and to be hungry for education, which they are. At the end of 4 years, when they graduate, they then are handed a certificate that says, you're going to school for college for 2 years, fully paid tuition. It begins with $4,000. Sounds like a lot of money, and it is, but I have a lot of people that sponsor children out there. I have neighborhood groups that will raise $4,000 and sponsor a child. And when you sponsor that child, that $4,000 is matched by the state. Now it becomes $8,000. The $8,000 is put in a college investment fund, state. That gains interest. At the end of those years, there's enough in there to be able to pay for college. If it comes up short of what's required, they will lower the tuition so that that child has an opportunity. Now, I only deal with children who are military. They have to have a father and mother, a grandparent, a guardian who raised them, or a sibling who served honorably in the United States military. That's my criteria. The rest is all take stock, and they do a wonderful job as a clearinghouse for me. And that's how I ended up with 81 kids. Now, this year I expect to get 10 more added to that. So I have to raise that money to do that. So I kind of make a joke and say I've kind of gone from the highest power in the land, the White House, and now I'm a beggar on the street. And I'm proud of that. That's exactly what I am. I go around and I beg for money. I beg for donations. I want to make sure that these kids have a good life ahead of them. And that's what you have to do. And I don't mind doing that. So this year we're off to a good start, but not a great one. I have never had a year when I've had to turn any children away because I didn't have the money to do it. And I sure don't want to start this year. So I'm out there beating the bushes. And I would say to you, if you have a neighborhood group, if you have an organization, all our veteran groups here in the villages all have adopted children. Every one of them. There are no exceptions because they know how important it is. Call me. There's a write-up who I am, so you know my background. My cards are here. The write-up on the scholarship program is here. And your support would be appreciated. This has gone extremely well. Then there was a fly in the ointment called COVID-19. All these families I told you about doing so great and doing so wonderful and working again and having housing, I don't think I have to tell you what happened when COVID hit. The jobs went away. Once you don't have the income, you lose the housing. You're back, not as bad as where you started, but pretty darn close. So now, at my church, which is St. Patrick's out in Ocala, right on the edge of the forest, we set up a feeding center, a mission. Father James Giles and myself were the only two priests out there, and we have about 20, 25 volunteers. And we distribute food. We started very small. We distribute food from the church every Saturday morning, starting at 7 o'clock in the morning, to everyone that comes through. Some drive cars, some have new cars, old cars, push shopping carts, carry backpacks, pull wagons, whatever. And as I said, it started small. As of last Saturday, on a regular basis, we are now distributing 20 to 25,000 pounds of food every single week. That's a lot of food. Toyota International gave us a forklift, brand new forklift, so that we could move pallets. Because if we could do that, manufacturers of food said, I'll give you all the food you can handle, all our overruns, but you got to be able to get it off the truck, store it, and let us go fast. So I called and talked to one of my donors, and I almost fell off my chair. I was just joking. He said, anything else you need, Gary? I said, no, I'm doing good. I said, you wouldn't happen to have a forklift in your pocket, though, would you? And he laughed. He goes, what in the heck are you going to do with a forklift? And I told him, he said, I know a lady. She'll call you in a day or so. Her name's Connie. I said, okay. So sure enough, on a Friday, I get a call. Hi, this is Connie. I was asked to give you a call. Tell me why you need a forklift and what it's got to be like. And I told her. She said, well, the boss is out today, but be back Monday. I'll get back to you. And I get a call Monday. This is kind of how things work. The Lord works in mysterious ways. I get a phone call on Monday, and it starts off, where do you want the forklift? And I said, what forklift? She goes, the one we're going to give you. And we're going to handle all the maintenance on it. You're not going to own it, but you can have it for as long as you want it. If you can use it, you can keep it 20 years. I don't care. And we'll maintain it. We'll change the oil. We'll do tires. We'll do everything. And I was like flabbergasted. And I said, who are you? And she said, I actually work for the international president of Toyota Heavy Equipment. And that's where it's coming from, but it's coming out of Ocala. So the long and the short of it is, we got a forklift. Once we got that, other people around here in Leesburg and other areas raised money to get us a refrigerated container, 20 foot by 40 foot by 12. And we can get tons of pallets of food in there. So we've got quite an operation going out there. We have over 350 children under the age of 12 that we're taking care of. The things I don't think about, diapers. A long time since I had to think about diapers. I'm 75 years old. But kids need diapers. We had kids running around all day in the same diaper. It was horrible. So I got a group of ladies that said, we'd like to help, and they put a committee together. Lo and behold, we got diapers all over the place every month, plenty, baby wipes, diapers, pull-ups, you name it, we got it. And then another lady from St. Tim's said, what do you do with feminine products? I said, good Lord, I don't know, I'm a guy, what do I know about that? She said, well, you better think about it because you got a lot of young women out there. And I said, okay, I'm thinking about it, what do I do? She said, you let me handle it. And I said, good, thank you, because I wouldn't know where to go anyway. And she started that. Now we get all that every month. So it's just a matter of talking to people, and if you can reach their hearts and they understand why you're doing it, and there's no gain. Project SOS, we have a very simple formula. Every dollar that we take in, we keep 2 cents. That runs the organization, buys the ink, buys the paper, keeps it going. 98 cents goes directly to the people that we serve, and that is guaranteed. That goes into the state. I get audited every year in the state, and I have to send in all my financials. If you sign up and say, I'd like to help, don't expect to get paid, don't expect to get reimbursed. I spend a lot out of my own pocket on this, and I don't mind. And most of the people that work for me do the same thing. And we're not looking to get paid, we're not looking for reimbursement, we're looking to make a change and to honor those that served us in this nation. And I'd like to think we're doing a good job of it. Last year was the best year ever. Most of our children never had a Christmas party. They never got a Christmas present, although mom would make something for them and knit something, maybe give it to them, things like that. But a real Christmas with toys and food and all kinds of stuff. Last year we put on a party for them, and it was spectacular. We had magicians, we had a clown, we had Santa Claus, we had everything there. And it was probably one of the most exciting things I've ever seen in my life. These kids just lit up. So tonight, instead of showing the sad part of it when it first started in the forest so many years ago, I wanted to share with you a video, if you're willing to sit and watch, and I think it's pretty interesting, showing our kids and what we did, because we're going to do the same thing this year on the 18th of December. We're able to do that again. The only thing we have to do now is get enough turkeys for Thanksgiving and get enough hams for Christmas. We can supply everything else, and we're working on that now. So if you will indulge me, I'd like to run that video for you and show you exactly what our party was like. And then we'll do question and answer. Hopefully, we can make this work. That again, maybe not. Should I pop it out and start it again? We did. Oh, it did. Take it out, it should start off. That I wouldn't know the password. Okay, it's up. Yep. Restart. I'm good in there. Yeah. Okay.
All ye faithful, joyful and triumphant, O come, ye to Bethlehem. Come and behold him, born the King of angels, O come.
Tell us where we are and what's going on today. Well, we're at St. Patrick's Church, Episcopal Church, which is in Ocala. And today we are having a Christmas party for all our kids in the area. Many of which don't normally have a Christmas party or a Christmas present, so today they are. Little entertainment, some presents, and right behind us is Santa Claus. Yeah, Santa's here, and Mrs. Claus is here. And I see the forklift is here too. And earlier my partner, Sue Cameron, took some video of you feeding the families, and we're going to check that out.
Oh, come, all ye faithful, joyful and triumphant, oh, come ye to Bethlehem. Come and behold him, born the King of angels, oh, come, let us adore.
The highest number we've had so far in a week was 2,089 in food for food. And we give them about a week's supply of groceries. Some of them make it last for 2 weeks, which is wonderful. But we try and get it, as much as we can, a good balanced diet to get their dairy, to get their protein, to get their meat, produce, good produce. A lot of it's organic.
I'm here for 6 people. It means a lot to me this holiday season. It's the toughest time of the season. I'm talking to you guys.
Mary did put an air sheet. It helped out a lot.
Because I don't work and I'm way below, I only make 1,400 from two persons.
I see the church is doing a their part, and I'm doing my part.
With all discount, you know, we don't know what we don't have.
I'm an Episcopal priest, and I'm the CEO of Kadow Ministries. We've been a food outreach, and then ever since COVID, before COVID, we were serving hot meals inside the tables. We were doing probably between 150, 200 people 3 days a week. But ever since COVID outbreak, we've gone to being at what they call a mobile pantry. And so, on average, we've been serving anywhere from 1,500 to 2,000 people, working out to be about anywhere from 150 to 300 cars every Saturday. We're running like 10 lanes of traffic, and a lot of times we're backed up down to the next block. But we're very fortunate. We have probably about 30 volunteers, and we've got quite a few organizations that have partnered with us to make this all happen. And it's just been a blessing to be a part of it. It's, I just don't see any in sight at the moment, the way things are going. So a lot of people have never been in pantries before. A lot of them are self-employed, and with all the situations with COVID, it's put them in financial situations. A lot of them have come in and apologized because they'll be in a nice car as any of them, but I don't know if they can pay this month. And us helping them with food is freeing up some of their money so they can make car payments, house payments, the other kinds of things. But we do serve a lot of veterans and a lot of disabled, working poor, retired poor. That was always been our outreach here. It's really expanded, so we're getting some hope and some reassurance that they're not alone, and just encouragement. We had quite a few people that are struggling with cancer and dealing with divorces, and so there's just all kinds of situations, and because of the way things are right now, you really can't congregate, and you've lost that sense of community. So in spite of having everybody in vehicles, we're really trying hard to build community in this sense. It's kind of mind-boggling. On average, we give away between 20 and 30,000 pounds of food here every Saturday.
A couple months ago, there's one lady who came through, and she was crying because we were putting food in her car, and she had come during the end, so we didn't have everything that you would normally get, but we were coming out of the church with bags filled with canned goods or anything really you could gather up. And she started crying and talking about how appreciative she was of us and how, she understands that, we don't have to be out here. None of us are being paid to do this. We're all doing it out of the kindness of our heart.
This is, I believe, one of the best things that anybody could do for people that are in need. And it's been helping our family, and I am helping another family too. And it's a heaven sent that people like this do this to help others.
You did a great job, Gary, and I know there's some people you really want to thank for the forklift, helping get the forklift. You were afraid to mention a couple, but you may have missed some of them. Is that it? I mentioned a lot of them. This man right here is one who has helped immensely in getting money for the forklift, and also our refrigerated container, which is on its way. So we're thrilled about that. And once we have the forklift in place, we have the container, we'll be able to feed twice as many people as we're doing now. And right now, we can do about 2,000 crew. So what do we have there? Nobody's going to go hungry around here. Not during COVID. Yeah, it was good. You had great support from the community, and like John in the warehouse up there, and all over the place. And you had clowns here from the villages too. I noticed that you were in clowns. 179 came out. 10 clowns today. They surprised us with. Greg Solomon, who's a local magician, wonderful magician, put on a great show. So the kids are having a ball. This is a real treat for them. Lots of cookies, lots of drink, and a happy time for all of us. Yeah, he even made snow. You did that? Yeah, it was. This morning, about 1,250 people came through. They were fed this morning on groceries. And right now, we have about roughly 160 young people here, kids, getting gifts today, mom and their parents are here. Not our owners are here, Project SOS, and we're sitting here in the row, moving around playing with kids now, but they all came out today, and we're just thrilled about that.
Now I have a new Santa Claus for me. So I love my kids, and I love it's every year I'm out there talking to kids, and the kids really look forward to seeing Santa.
We're going to ask for a new Mercedes. Is it going to be under the tree when I come home? All right, thank you, Sam. You're doing a great job. All you guys are doing a great job. Everybody's running away. You're the big one, right? Yeah? What's your name?
My name is Jimmy.
Jimmy, nice to meet you, Jimmy. That's AJ. You're surprised I knew your name, right? Yeah. Thank you. And we have Sarah. Sarah, and you are Dave. Oh, good for you. Good for you. And I see you've been out turkey, so I'll let you guys get busy, get to work, and God bless for all you do. I'm a young man here named Spencer. Spencer, you ready for
donation. And with that donation, we go shopping. We like to know that we can at least do something. It's giving them love. I mean, truly, it's a small thing to do for people who deserve so much.
We're going to take a few pictures around here, all the kids getting their presents and everything. But I wanted to say thank you, and, you know, maybe we should do a little goodbye, or we put it at the end. Yeah. So, ready? So all the veterans out there, active military and their families, we salute you for all you do. Till next time. Nice job, brother.
Thank you very much. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year.
Thank you. I know it was a little long, but I hope you enjoyed it. Again, that was our Christmas party. We're going to do the same thing this year. Meanwhile, I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have about SOS or where we're going from here. Anything at all. Nothing's off limits. Nothing? Wow. Good. Guess I did a good job explaining it then. Thank you very much. All righty. Well, thank you again for your time. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Very good, very moving. Could there be a way that this contact information for your organization be posted there in your bulletin, the next edition, so that people who are in a position that they would like to make a donation would know where
Sure.
to send? Not everyone is going to be able to physically volunteer,
Yep.
but others' hearts may be open to making a financial
All the
donation.
information up here, you're welcome to help yourself too, and it's all on there, and I'm sure Cliff can put a link in there too.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Your organization has been very helpful in the past also, by the way. Thank you. All right, anything else? We're good.
Gary,
Thank you,
it's my
buddy.
pleasure,
Thanks.
and we're going to continue to work and to see to it that this works for you, buddy.
Wonderful, thank you.
Thank you.
for the opportunity tonight.
As I said when I started, Gary is a real friend. I've got to know him real well over the last 4 or 5 years. So with that being said, we have donuts in the back. Please help yourself to a whole bunch, otherwise I'm going to get really fat. So take whatever you need, and we'll leave plenty for the rec center. And thank you guys for coming. Next month we're at Laurel Manor. So we'll see you all again. Thank you.